Hello everyone and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Today we join our Mars 1 probe as it is about to make its maneuver to get into orbit, or rather to get into a closer flyby around Duna. So let us just time accelerate towards this small maneuver, only 10 meters per second, just a little one. And getting closer, 1 hour, 7 minutes away. Unfortunately, Kerbal Alarm Clock is going to kill our time warp now. So let me actually pull up the alarm and delete it because it's set to pull us up exactly 1 hour before the maneuver. Okay, so let's move in. Almost at the node. 3 minutes remaining. 2 minutes. 1. And just such a small little burn. Nothing too important. But should be just what we need to get into a nice, tight orbit around Duna. Retrograde too, around Gilly actually. I believe we have a Gilly encounter, which will mean that we can drop our lander off without too much hassle. Okay, firing up that nuclear engine and just trying to track that maneuver node comfortably. Oh, there we go. Got most of it. Not perfect, but good enough. And of course we can make more corrections as we get closer to the planet. And that's pretty much it for this little probe for a while again now. In fact, I think we only actually... let's add a quick Mars 1. Yeah, we want a sphere of influence change. Boom. And in 180 days, that's when its sphere of influence is going to change. So it's a fair amount of time. Still almost half a year, or exactly half a year actually, before Mars 1 will do any real meaningful science around Duna. Okay, let's go back to the KSC because we have some cool changes to talk about. And here we are back at the KSC, and the first thing you will notice is that our Research and Development Center is finally upgraded to level 3. Our spaceplane hangar is at level 2, and our runway is also now at tier 2, which is pretty damn cool. And the way this happened is I just did a bunch more of those missions you saw in the previous episode, the tourism ones, mostly moon flybys. I didn't land anything else near the base. And we just got a bunch more money, exactly about 5 million funds to be precise, of which we spent most on the R&D building and about 1 million split between these two. Actually quite a bit less than, about 700,000 split, and about 3.4 I think it was. It was a lot on the Research and Development Center. But that also enabled us to go in and grab the Advanced Science Tech tree node, and this was actually done by, while I was doing those other missions, I transmitted all the science that it built up over Atlas Station and used that almost 700 science in total to unlock that node, which was pretty damn cool. As you can see, I'm not sure the exact number, about 200 days or so, maybe 150 days have lapsed since the previous episode. Anyway, that also means it's time to check out our new report, and we get 13,800 funds. Looking like we got state confidence 243 and public opinion is 102. Now, I'm not really sure what this means because these numbers, as far as I can remember, haven't really changed. We can see our history, right? Past reviews. There we go. So let's have a look at quarter 10. Public opinion 5, state confidence of 9. And, oh wait, I did the wrong thing. Open that up again. And then 11 was 4 and 7, so it looks like it's going down, but we're getting more money, so I don't know what's going on. And in far more important news, this space program officially now has a space plane. It's stupidly cool. Let me show you it quickly in the spaceplane hangar. And here in the spaceplane hangar is the extremely poorly named 7.1. I have yet to find a suitable name for this craft. I've really got a bit of writer's block in that regard. So this one's going out to you, the viewer. If you have a cool name suggestion for this craft, please leave it in the comments below, and I will happily take it into consideration. As you can see, this is a 6-engine craft. It is powered by 4 Whiplash ramjets initially, and then once we exit the atmosphere, it switches over to these 2 swivel engines to complete the rest of the orbital insertion. These engines get us up to almost 2 kilometers per second while in the atmosphere, and they cut out at around about 25,000 meters, so yeah, 25 kilometers. So we've got quite a fair amount of the atmosphere to push through with these swivels, but this thing has enough delta V to comfortably rendezvous with the Atlas station. Inside this little cargo bay here, we also have plenty of supplies and some fertilizer. In fact, actually, I'm going to take out this fertilizer tank and throw in some more life support. And the simple reason for this is, in fact, actually we won't need it for this particular mission, but this craft is capable basically of taking 3 of these 1.25 meter life support parts, be they fertilizer or otherwise. And we're just going to empty this one here actually just to save us a bit of delta V. In fact, actually, how much does that net us? empty, it gives us another 100 meters per second with the jet engine. It's not that much, but enough, you know, it's worth thinking about. 0.6 of a ton. Yeah, no, good enough, good enough. This craft's primary purpose is, of course, as a crew transport. It is not designed to go anything further than the Atlas station. It's just designed to ferry crew there and back. And, of course, you know, given that it has this sort of customizable payload, we can take more supplies or more fertilizer up there as well. So it has a resupply function. We also have some reserve fuel tanks stacked in the back here, 200 units of liquid fuel. And that's just so that when we re-enter, if we've used up all of our fuel with our rocket engines, we still have enough to fly back to the KSC on these turbojets. In fact, actually, we can disable these inner ones and use the outer ones to do a lot more control. Or more of controlled flight, that is. We also have some solar panels, of course, and parachutes for when I inevitably botch the landings. In fact, actually, I've been meaning to double up on our parachute count. In fact, we can also remove that connector. Let's just do that real quick. Now, these will, of course, cause more drag, which isn't ideal, but they do ensure that, you know, when I inevitably botch a landing or two, we do not lose the entire craft, and it'll land on its wheels. So let's just move those in. Okay, and that is exactly what our new spaceplane looks like. It, of course, has some RCS thrusters, and, this is really cool, this 2.5 meter Mark II spaceplane docking port. Isn't that just absolutely awesome? I love it. I think it just looks so great. There you go. Okay. And then what we're going to do for this mission is, of course, we're going to be taking Valentina up, as well as 4 tourists who we have received contracts to take to the Atlas station and low Kerbal orbit, respectively. So without further ado, let's put this thing on the launch pad, load up our tourists, and get going. Alright, so here we are on the launch pad. Let us load up our passengers. Perfect, very nice. We'll switch on our internal cockpit lights and turn off those runway lights. We don't need them at present. Let's also enable our brakes. And we need to target the Atlas station. Boom, there it is, got it. Okay, that's quite finicky once you've got it selected. So we're just going to warp around until such time as the station is approaching right about here. I found in my testing to be the best time to launch this craft if you want to encounter it. Yeah, right about there, that's perfect. Okay, so let us turn off our brakes, engage SAS, max out our thrust, and in 3, 2, 1, fire those engines. And those little turbo ramjets have a pretty awesome helical looking trail, which I do like very much. Okay, so the entire focus of this episode will be on this space plane. In next episode, we'll be doing more station expansion. I actually have a couple missions lined up for that, and maybe even a bit of base expansion on the Chronos base first, because I've got some contracts to do that. So what you're going to want to do now, by the way, when you're launching any space plane, or this one in particular, is you want to pitch downwards by pressing S and hit about 15 degrees above the horizon. Let's also put away our landing gear by pressing that button, and voila, there we are. Now we're going to maintain attitude here, angle of attack of exactly 15 degrees, and hold it until we're at about 25 kilometers outside of the atmosphere. Basically, we want to max out the use of our ramjets and you know, use them until such time as there is so little atmosphere remaining that they don't really produce enough thrust to accelerate the craft. So, with that said, if you guys would like this craft file made available, please just let me know, and I will gladly include a Google Drive link up with this episode and the next, and you can download it there. Alright, and here we are at 17 kilometers above the atmosphere. We can see that our fuel flow, our airflow is dropping off dramatically, and I typically switch over to my rocket engines once this hits about 6 or 7 units, because as you can see, we are no longer accelerating at the same rate we were once. In fact, actually, I was too busy taking screenshots and I've slightly botched this orbit. So let's enable our action group, which unfortunately, because my spaceplane hangar is still on Mark II, I don't have the numbered action groups just yet. So we'll be using our abort action group to toggle off our air intakes and our engines and enable our rocket motors. Turning off the air intakes also decreases the drag they produce. You can imagine that sort of like a little panel appears over here and then the air just slides off it much more smoothly. That is how the game models it. Okay, so let us get our apoapsis up above 70 kilometers now, and basically all you want to do is you can increase your angle of attack very slightly. I generally go up to about 20 degrees, and you don't want to go any more than that though, because you'll begin to lose a large amount of your horizontal velocity to drag. At this rate, you know, you're sort of gaining a bit of lift on the wings, even though there's not much air left, but you're also gaining quite a bit of vertical velocity, which is what's required to get up and out of the atmosphere at this point. So as you can see, this craft has a stable amount of 200 or 2,500 meters per second of delta V once those engines are activated. For whatever reason, once we leave the atmosphere, this number is no longer visible, but it has plenty of delta V. It's probably close to about 800 once we're in orbit. I'm not really sure why this freaks out Kerbal engineers so much. If any of you know, please let me know. Anyway, so here we are. Here our apoapsis is now coming up above nearly 60 kilometers. Once we hit, and we've got the Atlas station targeted, yes, once we've hit 70, we can begin to fire up all the way actually up to 100, so we can see when our rendezvous with the station will be. We still have quite a large amount of fuel remaining, so I'm not too worried about consumption at present. In fact, actually, let's go higher up. There we go. We will be intersecting... Oh, that's quite far away, isn't it? We'll wait till we're about there. That looks good. And now we can tweak that maneuver node. In fact, actually, it may be beneficial to keep going for a bit longer. There we go. What's that? 10 kilometers, 7654. We're actually going to intersect it quite briefly, I must say. Alright, and that will be at 100 kilometers. That's pretty perfect, actually. Let's keep that number nice and low. There we go. And we'll let it increase for a bit, but we're almost outside of the atmosphere at present. We are at 60 kilometers, yes. And as you can see, our cockpit there got quite cherry red. It took a bit of sort of, well, I suppose not re-entry heating, just atmospheric heating in this regard would be the correct word. Yeah, probably. Anyway, so let's accelerate, and we'll hit that 70 kilometer mark where all the gaseous particles that were just below it miraculously disappear, and your craft is no longer affected in any way by drag or turbulence. Okay, so let's extend these panels. Voila. And what's our mark like now? Can we throttle up a little bit and close that distance? 2.7 kilometers. That is better than nothing. I will take it. So what we're going to do is hit quick save real quick over here, and we're going to warp around right until just before that maneuver node, and we can actually switch over to target view, and we see we're going to need to wipe off nearly 350 meters per second of delta V. Okay, now this relative velocity is quite high, and I do believe I have just enough fuel in my tank to pull this maneuver off, so we should be just fine. Let's enable our RCS as well for a bit more authority. And there we go. Let's just line ourselves up nicely. Perfect. Oh. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's hit max thrust just to start wiping off that horizontal drift we've picked up. And now we can move ourselves over directly over that retrograde marker and just wipe off all of that relative velocity. Or at least not all of it, but enough of it that, you know, when we get close, we won't moving at 200 meters per second. However, we are going to move a bit close to the craft before we do this, because I don't want to have to be time warping for a few minutes. In fact, actually, we need to fire up right now. We're about to encounter the target. And there it goes. There goes the station, zooting past. In fact, actually, we may have underestimated the amount of time needed to do this burn. So we have overshot it a little bit, which isn't great, because we don't really have the fuel margins to make those kind of mistakes. But that is just human error for you, isn't it? Okay, so there we go. Wiping off the remainder of that, and this is the last of our oxidizer. It is kaput. Thankfully, we do have RCS to make up the rest of the distance. So we're just going to engage time accelerate, because this could take a minute otherwise. And sorry, it looks a bit janky. I'm doing this with the maneuver ball at the bottom there. Let's just knock that off. There we go. Okay, 7 kilometers. You know what we need to be doing is targeting. There we go, directly on there. And let us accelerate up to about 7 meters per second. There we go. We're going to connect with the craft directly in exactly, 70 seconds. So what we're going to want to do now is go back to regular acceleration, because as you can see, it drifted the craft over there. I'm getting some null point errors in this game's positioning code. It's kind of annoying. And I say kind of annoying, I mean incredibly annoying. Oh my god, I wish it would stop. It is the bane of my existence. So let's also wipe off all of that relative velocity, or at least as much of it as is necessary here. There we go, Svils. Okay. Well, let's also line ourselves up with the center of our target and thrust backwards yet again. How much non-repellent do we have now? We still got plenty, more than enough to do this orbital insertion. And if push comes to it, we can just pop open our cargo bay and connect these craft via connector ports. And that is just a little redundancy I've built in just in case I mess up the docking too badly. In fact, actually, it's time to open up that docking node, say control from here, and get this thing to point at the target. We're also coming up on the wrong side of this craft, which is, of course, you know, classic largely unemployed gameplay skills. So we just want to line ourselves up here. There we go. And let us thrust away from it. Oh god. Oh god, I'm definitely going to hit this thing. Whoops, here goes some solar panels. I can promise you now. Oh no, we might just make it. We might just be able to slow down in time. Oh, this is going to be close though. This is going to be so close. Oh god. Oh god, god. Oh no. Oh boy. Who's boy? Who boy? Who? Oh, okay, no, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're real good. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is, because this is not exactly particularly realistic, but since we have, since I have completely screwed up this rendezvous, we are going to have to turn the station around to face the space plane. So let us say control from here, and we're going to set that as our target, and we're going to want to move all the way over, and point our little control tower here directly at the space plane. Look, I mean, if push came to it, I could just fly our little drone in there and, you know, refuel it with some monopropellant, but that isn't necessary at present, so we're not going to do that. Oh, God. Let's enable the thrusters on the station, just so we can get that line up. Perfect. So we'll use the station thrusters as well to do a bit of cheating. Perfect, just like that. I'm happy with that, and then we can switch back over to this craft to do the final dock. Okay, let us aim directly at the docking node and thrust towards it. Yeah, so this craft, this space plane is actually quite fantastic. I did a very poor rendezvous here. I was quite aggressive with it, and so that is why we have seen the sort of poor losses that we have seen. But indeed, this craft is actually it's incredibly aerodynamically stable, and it is very, very easy to fly. I mean, this is probably the most noob-friendly craft I've ever built, and as a noob SSTO designer, that's quite an achievement for me personally. I'm quite chuffed with myself. Anyway, as you can tell, docking to this little control tower is kind of annoying. It doesn't really feel that authentic, because, you know, you have to essentially crawl through a probe to get to the interior of the station. So my plan is, for the next episode, is we're going to come up here with some new docking arms and some solar arrays and expand the station substantially. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that. There we go. Okay, so that is our spacecraft attached to the station. How cool is that? Now we just need to wait out that contract. There we go. 4 hours docked at the Atlas station is all we need to do. So we're just going to time warp around until such time as that is complete. It's a real shame it isn't right now, because this is exactly when we would need to leave to land at the KSP again. So yeah, let's just warp around. 4 hours. Bloop, 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 bloop. 2. Getting there, 2.5. Unfortunately, we are quite low, so warping isn't that easy. And we are almost there. 10 minutes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Is that the... So now we just need to warp around until we're over the desert again. And then we can detach the space plane and send it safely home to Kerbal. Let's go... Oh, it's going to be at the night side, isn't it? Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. Okay. So now what we're also going to do is just transfer a little bit of fuel back into this craft so that we can use our engines. So let's say in and in. Stop that. And stop that. We're also going to pop open the cargo bay and enable these little fuel tanks that are my reserve fuel, because as I said, these are useful for that last little bit of re-entry flight. Okay, and with that, I think we can decouple, oh, wrong node, oops, decouple this node, undock, blurp, close that off. We can close off the cargo bay. I'm targeting the wrong craft, there we go. Close off the cargo bay, and we can thrust away. RCS thrust is on. SAS on. There we go. Let's thrust away. We can also close our solar panels so we don't smack them into anything. Close up that clampatron. aim ourselves retrograde, just like that, and in 3, 2, 1, fire up those engines. Perfect. Okay, and that is all of our oxidizer gone, and that should have been just enough to knock us down into the atmosphere comfortably. No, still quite low, so let's actually thrust with our RCS thrusters in this direction. We want to bring that trajectory right about there if possible. Unfortunately, I didn't think I put quite enough oxidizer on here. Whoopsies. Oh, well, it's fine. Rather keep it on the station. We don't really need to land at the KSC. It's just nice because we get more of our money back. Let's go into map view and just see what we're doing with our periapsis. It's not very low, is it? Anyway, okay. Well, let's burn off the last of our RCS fuel. Get a bit low in the atmosphere. Yeah, we're definitely going to miss the runway, so we're going to have to land on parachutes on this one. That's my fault. Didn't put enough fuel back in the craft. Whoopsies. I have managed to do this a few times without needing to refuel this craft. It really just depends how efficiently you manage to make your rendezvous. That is really the deciding factor. Okie dokes. Let us square ourselves off. Perfect. There we go. And just time warp until such time as we are hitting the atmosphere. Now, when re-entering a spaceplane, you want to focus your attention on the angle at which you enter. So as you can see here, I have myself set to follow the prograde marker. That wasn't really the best thing because you don't want to go in nose first. You kind of want to be at about a 20-degree angle. That's my personal favorite. So that when you hit the atmosphere, you present the largest possible cross-sectional area for your drag. And there we go. So we want to hit, but we don't really want to hit completely vertical because the plane will just flip around. But we don't want to hit completely straight forward because then, you know, the nose will explode. It'll take all of the heating. What we want to do is try and distribute that re-entry heating as much as possible over as wide a surface area as possible. And so sort of presenting the craft at about 20-30 degrees serves that purpose quite well. We also get a small amount of lift off the wings from, you know, hitting the atmosphere at that speed. And so we can actually stay in the air a little bit longer. And that just helps us slow down more comfortably. Okay, here we are finally starting with those re-entry heating effects. And I gotta say, it's getting quite cherry red on top. And as you can see, this piece now is also heating up quite substantially. We're also going to switch ourselves back over to our air-breathing engines. That will, of course, increase our drag because our ramp intakes are open again. But the real reason for that is so that we can get a bit of aerodynamic stability once we are back in the atmosphere. And, you know, oh, here we go. Here it is. See, now I wasn't paying attention and we've lost a bit of control. Not ideal, but it's okay. This sort of tumbling effect will slow us down much more rapidly, but we do run the risk of knocking our tourists out and making them hit their G limits. In fact, actually, I think if we spin ourselves, that should help keep us aerodynamically stable. Let's disable SAS and do a bit of spinning. The atmosphere is going to try and slow. That was close. Valentina regained consciousness. Now, we may actually have lost those contracts because of the 4x time accelerate. We'll have to see now. It'll be interesting to know. So let's fire up our engines so that we can begin our descent in a more controlled manner. In fact, actually, let's attempt to bank over this way, and we're going to enable our air brakes as well, just to really slow down a lot of that vertical velocity we've picked up. Here we go. We're going to fire these engines at about 30% thrust. That should definitely do the trick. There we go, banking over quite comfortably now. And I think we're going to try and land this thing in the water. That's probably the best bet. So let's put those brakes away and accelerate. There we go, just like that. Okay, now again, you want to keep your nose above the horizon unless you're trying to go down into the ground and die, which we're not doing here. So, you know, we're going to want to keep that nose slightly up, push that velocity vector up while our engines are throttled. Our engines are throttled up. We could try and land on the beach there. That could be interesting. I'm going to quick save either way. We got quite a bit of fuel, 2,000 meters per second, so we really can pick our landing site. It would be interesting to try and land this thing without a runway, actually. So let's go for this spot right here. We're going to turn off our engines. And just to help us brake, we're going to extend those air brakes just to help us turn a bit more rapidly, close them down again. And let's drop our landing gear. And see if we can land right here on this beach. Emergency landing, can it be done? is largely unemployed, a good enough Kerbal Space Program player to pull this shit off. There we go. Okay, nose is above the horizon. That's what, or not above the horizon, but it's above the ground level. So if we smack the ground, we shouldn't explode immediately. Ooh, 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 gotta keep that pitch up. Gotta keep that. Ooh, we might explode. Ooh, 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 shit. Deploy parachutes. Oh god, no, everyone's gonna die. Okay, so that brings us to the next problem in this little iteration. Sorry to deprive you all of a pretty sweet explosion, but yeah, when landing this craft, or when landing anything recently, what I've realized, as you can see, there we go, it takes a while for the game's physics engine to realize that we are actually in-game and trying to do things. So I'm going to keep trying to land this thing comfortably. I don't want to land on parachutes if I can avoid it. I feel like I'm just good enough to get this right. Maybe that beach over there would be a good landing spot. We sort of come in from this angle, you know? Let's try that. Okay, okay, let's bank. Oh, oh, right there. That looks good. That looks good in flight. Yeah, I'm gonna land on the beaches, because everyone knows that beach sand is the best place to land a, 60-ton aircraft. Very stable, very sound stuff, beach sand. Okay, come on, we can do this. We can do this. Let's throttle back those engines. Let us flatten out our trajectory. Nice and simple like, right? Gotta keep a bit of aerodynamic control. And the last minute, I'm gonna bank over eastwards. Yeah. Oh god, what have I done? What have I done? Oh no, oh no, oh no, I fucked it up. We're gonna take off, we're gonna take off again. Take off again, save the passengers! Oh, that actually would have worked. See if we can't land that. Oh no, see we clipped into the ground again. And that's death for everybody. Bye-bye, Kerbals. Whew. But damn, does that make for a cool explosion, you gotta admit. Okay, let's try that one more time. This time we're gonna bite the bullet and land on parachutes, I think. I just wanted to show you guys how difficult it is to land without a runway. Hell, it's difficult to land with a runway, especially when you're as bad at this game as I am. Okay, so let's just basically, what we're gonna do is head straight here down towards the water, and then we push our air brakes out, kill our engines, deploy our drogue chutes, just like that. There we go. Plump. And the craft will flip over slowly. Perfect. And we can deploy our main chutes as well. And let's just deploy our landing gear as well while we're at it. Okay, interesting. So it does still go bottom first. That's not surprising. That is a lot heavier than the rest of the craft. So we would need 2 sets of parachutes there to really lift it up. But I think in future we're just going to get around this problem by not landing, on the other side of the planet. That's going to be our goal. Just going to throttle up these engines to soften our landing a little bit. Completely realistic, this, boys and girls. This is exactly how the space shuttle landed every time, if you were wondering. Perfect. And now that we're in the water, what we can actually do is put our brakes away. And we can do a bit of flying. That's right. Can we actually fly this thing while it is in the water? Oh, we absolutely can. That's hilarious. Oh my god. Okay, well, we're not going to go at full speed, because that's a bit insane. But let's see if we can't get ourselves back onto land and take off. That's the real goal. Okie dokes. Let's see if we can't... Think we can get up there? Is that maybe a bit steep? Nah, I think we can do it. I think we can do it. Especially if we sort of come at it at a slow angle. We do still have our landing gear deployed, right? Yes. Okay. I'm wondering if we can't take off on this mountain. Or if that's asking a bit much. Alright, alright, alright. We have, of course, lost our parachutes now, so I will be quick saving as soon as we're on the surface. Oh, yes, yes, we totally nailed it. Oh, we are so cool. Okay, let's enable our brakes. And that should just... Oh, look at that. That's, what is going on there? That's hilarious. Okay, now that we've quick saved, we can return to this point and take off at any time. Or rather, and recover this craft at any time. But I want to see what happens if we turn ourselves... Oh god, I fucked it up already. Oh, okay. No. Spin out all you want. That's fine. We need to turn ourselves this way. There we go. We're going to use this mountain as a ramp. As a takeoff ramp. And see if this craft can do it. I'm legitimately interested. Oh, a bit of wobble in those wings. That's what they need, is more stability. Oh, isn't that just cool? Oh, crap, man. That is so cool. Let's put away everything. And that, everybody, was the 7. So please, if you have any name suggestions again for this craft, let me know, and I will gladly attribute it, because I am very, very in love with this little space plane. Thank you everybody very much for watching. I will see you next time. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.